State College, Pennsylvania, September 2024. An undercover drug investigation is beginning around Penn State University, and police say the trail is leading somewhere you would not normally expect to find the center of a cocaine distribution case.
A fraternity house.
Two of them, eventually, Delta Upsilon and Sigma Chi. According to Pennsylvania authorities, confidential informants begin making controlled purchases of cocaine from a seller connected to the fraternities. 6 controlled buys are eventually made from one student, Thomas Robinson. Police say the cocaine from those buys, plus cocaine later seized from his room at Delta Upsilon, totals more than 73 grams.
And that's the point where this stops sounding like somebody occasionally selling a little something at a college party.
Very quickly, because after Robinson is arrested, investigators say he cooperates and tells them where his cocaine was coming from. Another Penn State student, a Sigma Chi member named Agostino Abatiello.
And then the numbers get much bigger.
Much bigger. Robinson tells investigators about repeated purchases not in grams, but in ounces, hundreds of grams, and eventually kilograms. One alleged purchase, 500 grams for $18,000. Another, 1 kilogram for $22,000. Authorities say Abatiello and others were obtaining cocaine from sources in Philadelphia and New York and moving it back to State College.
So when Pennsylvania's Attorney General announces charges in August 2026, we're not talking about one guy and a bag of cocaine. Prosecutors are describing an organization.
Exactly. 14 people are charged. 13 are current or former Penn State students. The 14th is the father of one of the students. Authorities call the investigation Operation Drugs Unlimited.
That sounds like a title somebody rejected for being too obvious.
It is the actual name of the investigation.
Of course it is.
And there is one allegation in the grand jury material that turns an already remarkable college drug story into something even stranger. Prosecutors say fraternity pledges were used to help prepare and package cocaine for resale.
Please tell me that was not being treated as part of pledging.
Pennsylvania Attorney General Dave Sunday described the alleged use of pledges as a form of fraternity indoctrination. The grand jury presentment says pledges at Delta Upsilon were used to package cocaine into half-gram bags. It also says brothers and pledges at Sigma Chi helped prepare cocaine after large supplies arrived.
That is a very different meaning of brotherhood.
Before we go further, an important point. These are criminal allegations. Charges are not convictions. The people we name in this episode are presumed innocent unless and until proven guilty. And much of what we're discussing comes from a grand jury presentment and criminal complaints, describing what witnesses and investigators told authorities.
So we're telling you what prosecutors say happened, not pretending a trial has already happened.
Precisely. I'm Rose.
I'm Otis.
This is Detention. And this is Operation Drugs Unlimited, the Penn State cocaine ring.
Recess is over.
So, how does an alleged operation like this even start?
According to testimony summarized in the grand jury presentment, it starts considerably smaller than where it ends. Mohammed Harabi, a Delta Upsilon member, testified that cocaine was already being sold to fraternity brothers. He said that in the summer of 2023, he approached Thomas Robinson about becoming business partners.
Business partners? In college? Selling cocaine?
Allegedly. When they returned for the fall semester, Harabi says he arranged a purchase from Agostino Abatiello using Snapchat, around 100 grams for roughly $4,000. He and Robinson contributed cash, and the cocaine was allegedly delivered to Delta Upsilon.
Then what?
The plan, according to the presentment, was to divide it into half-gram bags and sell those bags for a profit. Harabi and Robinson would make a commission, sell to fraternity members and friends, and communicate with each other as bags were sold so they could keep track of the money.
That sounds less like random party dealing and more like inventory management.
That is essentially how prosecutors described the progression. By November 2023, Harabi testified that he and Robinson bought around 250 grams for approximately $7,500. They allegedly picked it up from Abatiello, paid cash, returned to the fraternity house, and had pledges help package it into half-gram bags.
That's the part I keep coming back to, because a pledge is usually trying to get accepted into the fraternity. That creates a very particular kind of pressure.
Which is why the allegation has drawn so much attention. Authorities are not merely saying drugs existed at fraternity parties. They allege the fraternity structure itself was sometimes useful to the operation, houses as locations, brothers as customers or distributors, and pledges as labor for packaging.
And then one of the original partners says he wants out.
Harabi testified that in December 2023, he told Robinson he wanted out of the cocaine business. He says Robinson returned his original investment plus profit, but investigators allege the operation continued growing with him.
Which brings us back to Abatiello.
Yes. Another Sigma Chi member, Lars Ziepvat, testified that he and Abatiello initially obtained cocaine from a Philadelphia source. When that source disappeared, Ziepfat said Abatelio found a source in his hometown in New York capable of supplying larger quantities. Ziepfat described a change. What had begun as sourcing cocaine for themselves and friends became, in his view, selling for profit.
And there were road trips.
According to the grand jury, Ziepfat and another Sigma Chi member, Robert Zanola, made 3 trips to New York to obtain large quantities for Abatelio. Ziepfat said Abatelio would provide an address. Someone would deliver a bag containing cocaine, they would drive it back to State College and turn it over. Payment for making the trip was allegedly cash or cheaper cocaine.
That's a long way from somebody saying, hey, can you grab snacks on the drive back?
Quite. And prosecutors say the supply kept growing. Robinson described purchases of 6 to 8 ounces, then 500 grams, then kilogram quantities. One 500-gram purchase was allegedly documented by a photo on Robinson's phone.
And the photo's important for another reason.
Investigators say it showed several Delta Upsilon pledges helping Robinson package the cocaine into smaller bags.
Which is the kind of photo you really do not want sitting on your phone when detectives start building a drug case.
No. And by then, according to witnesses, the alleged business was no longer confined to 2 fraternity houses.
The grand jury presentment says the network expanded beyond fraternity brothers and friends. Cocaine was allegedly being distributed to people outside the houses and into other parts of the Penn State student community.
So how do police get from hearing rumors about that to 14 people being charged?
Controlled buys are a major part of it. In September 2024, State College Police developed confidential informants. Investigators searched the informants before and after purchases, supplied pre-recorded money, and monitored the transactions. 6 controlled purchases were made from Thomas Robinson between September and December.
And the lab results?
According to the presentment, the substances were sent to the Pennsylvania State Police Crime Lab and confirmed as cocaine. After the 6th buy, police executed a search warrant on Robinson's room at Delta Upsilon. He was arrested, and investigators say he then identified Abatelio as his supplier.
Which gives police a route upward through the alleged network.
Exactly. Robinson scribed multiple large transactions. The criminal complaint alleges that Abatelio delivered 6 to 8 ounces in January 2024, another 6 to 8 ounces in February, about 500 grams in March, and kilogram quantities later in the year. The complaint also alleges that Snapchat was used to facilitate cocaine deliveries.
And prosecutors say other fraternity members were doing more than packaging.
Yes. The grand jury identifies people who allegedly helped deliver cocaine, pick up supplies, transport it from New York, and distribute it. It describes Ryan Matson as an important part of Robinson's network, allegedly helping pick up drugs and distribute cocaine. It describes Ziepfat as working closely with Abatelio, and it says the operation grew outward from the fraternities.
Then there's the parent.
Paul Robinson, Thomas Robinson's father. Authorities accuse him of tampering with evidence and obstructing the investigation. According to prosecutors, he allegedly concealed evidence connected to the case, including a safe containing drugs and cash.
So 13 current or former students, and then somebody's dad enters the charging document.
Correct. And when the charges are announced, the list of alleged offenses ranges from serious felony counts involving corrupt organizations, conspiracy, and possession with intent to deliver, to other drug and obstruction-related charges depending on the defendant.
I think it's important that we don't flatten all 14 people into one accusation. They are not all charged with exactly the same conduct.
Absolutely. Nor does being named in the same investigation mean every defendant had the same role. Prosecutors describe different alleged levels of participation, and every defendant is entitled to contest the evidence against them.
What did Penn State do?
Delta Upsilon was placed on interim suspension while the university investigates. The International Organization of the Fraternity said members implicated in the alleged conduct had been expelled or suspended. Sigma Chi is a little different because the chapter involved was not officially recognized by Penn State at the time of the announcement.
And this is all landing right before students come back for another academic year.
Which helps explain why the story is getting so much attention. But the investigation itself is not new. The alleged conduct stretches back years, and police say the control buy phase began in 2024. The headline is happening now because the grand jury has completed this phase of its work, and prosecutors have brought the latest charges.
Meaning the news broke in August 2026, but the story underneath it has been building for a long time.
Exactly.
There is something almost surreal about the scale change in the story. 100 grams, 250, 500, then a kilogram.
And those numbers matter because they illustrate what prosecutors believe happened, an alleged operation that expanded. Witness testimony describes cocaine being brought to State College every few weeks, repackaged and sold. The criminal complaint alleges proceeds were reinvested to obtain more cocaine. In other words, prosecutors are describing a cycle: buy, package, sell, reinvest, repeat.
With college fraternity houses allegedly sitting in the middle of it.
Yes, and that's what separates this story from the familiar headline about drugs being found on a college campus. The allegation is not simply that students possessed cocaine. Authorities say an organized distribution network used relationships within fraternities to obtain, package, transport, and sell it.
And allegedly pulled pledges into the machinery.
That may ultimately be one of the most consequential allegations for the fraternities themselves. A pledge is someone seeking membership and approval from existing members. If prosecutors can establish that pledges were expected or pressure to package cocaine as part of that environment, it raises questions well beyond ordinary drug possession.
But we're still at the charging stage.
We are. The grand jury recommended charges. Criminal complaints have been filed. Defendants will have opportunities to challenge the Commonwealth's evidence, and facts that look straightforward in a charging document can be contested in court.
So what do we actually know today?
We know Pennsylvania authorities announced charges against 14 people in connection with what they describe as a cocaine trafficking organization associated with Penn State students and fraternity houses. We know 13 defendants are current or former students, and 1 is a parent. We know prosecutors say the investigation involved controlled buys, search warrants, witness testimony, phone evidence, and laboratory-confirmed cocaine. And we know the grand jury material describes alleged purchases reaching kilogram quantities.
We also know the title Operation Drugs Unlimited was somehow available.
Otis.
I'm just saying, if law enforcement names the operation for us, we're going to use it.
Fair enough.
What happens next?
Court. Arraignments, hearings, motions, potentially plea negotiations, and, if cases aren't resolved, trials. There may also be consequences inside the university and fraternity system separate from the criminal cases. And because this story broke only now, there are likely details we don't yet have.
Which means this is one of those episodes where the ending hasn't happened yet.
Not remotely. What we have is the opening public version of a case investigators say took years to build.
And maybe the strangest allegation is still the simplest one. You're a college pledge, somebody hands you a bag and says, "Welcome to the fraternity."
Allegedly. And if the Commonwealth proves that happened, it will be a remarkable example of how an organization built around belonging can be used to normalize something extraordinarily risky.
I'm Otis.
And I'm Rose. This has been Detention.
Recess is over.
A final legal note. Everyone discussed in this episode is presumed innocent unless and until proven guilty. Our descriptions of alleged criminal conduct are based primarily on criminal complaints, the statewide investigating grand jury's presentment, statements from the Pennsylvania Attorney General's office, and current news reporting. Charges and allegations are not findings of guilt.
Detention uses synthetic voices and artificial intelligence tools as part of its production process.
Thanks for listening.
We'll see you next time.